Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
Yes. Oh, I have a microphone. Yes. Mr. Bill O'Reilly.
You need to join the party, Tim. Turn on your mic. And
it does.
Come on over to BS Free MD.
Suck. Again. It just makes me happy.
Watching Bill O'Reilly just be frustrated because I think you're souls, not sisters, spirit animals.
Yeah,
soul bros.
Pissed off Bill O'Reilly on Inside Edition is my spirit animal.
Well, I think maybe I need to flash your book Unoffendable.
Yes, you do need to flash
the book Unoffendable.
Yes. Yeah, but it cleanses my soul.
Nobody on here wants to see me flash. And no gallery comments on
Oh boy. Oh boy. Someone has pre-gamed just a little bit too much.
Well, what else are you going to do on a Wednesday afternoon?
It's summer. I'm wearing a summer shirt because I don't care.
No, the problem is
because I've just
I
given
had
up.
one sip of the cocktail to test it before we got started, and I haven't eaten enough today on my little keto diet.
Plus I mixed it.
Those carbs hit.
And Motley Crue wrote Dr. Feelgood about me.
Mm-hmm. Well, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, welcome. Happy Monday. I hope you have a good laugh and a light week. But if you're here on Hump Day Wednesday, we are here for your entertainment pleasure on these fun Doctales with Cocktails episodes. And tonight, I wanted to share what we're talking about first off so that you know if you'll stick around. So first off, we told you last week that we were going to talk about our strange and weird communication experiment. We didn't, and we will get to that today because we remembered and we feel bad for dropping the ball on that one. As well as I call Communication 101-31 for 31 years of conflict resolution and anatomy of an argument, featuring a role play by us because we had one of those this week. And we did get asked by a listener to talk about conflict with finances. This is a little different, but and then I have a little medical history this week. Yay me, because Tim's usually the big history buff. But I've been working on some article stuff for the Truth Serum and got interested in the history of blood transfusions. So that's coming up. And then next we will throw in some fun bombs of in the news, fun stuff that we've been looking at and see where that takes us. So let's kick this off.
Okay, so I'm sitting there watching racing innocently about a week or so ago, and May walks up to me and she goes, "You know how we just spontaneously think the exact same thing at the exact same time?" And I'm like, "Yeah, right." And then she's like, "Well, what are you thinking right now?"
Okay, so wait, before we go further,
because she's doing a test.
Yes. Before you go further, let's preface that by saying that since we've been married 31 years, and those of you who have been married a long time, or even if you haven't and you've experienced this, please chime in on the comments. We have found that there are many times in our life in dialogue where I walk in, or maybe we're sitting in the room together, and someone will say, either one of us say, "Hey, I was just thinking of this," and we're like, "Really? What were you thinking?" And we'll say it. And then, of course, the surprise goes on our face of our eyes lighting up and our face smiling. It's like, "No way, I was thinking the same thing too." It's kind of creepy. It happens frequently, not always. And so I happened to be, I don't know, I was in a different room. He's watching TV. And it hit me, and I'm like, I started thinking about something, and I thought, I wonder if I can telepathically make him think of this and see if the experiment holds true. Of course, what is it saying? Do I have the power to make him think what I think? Anyway, so go ahead, Tim. So I walked into the living room. You were watching baseball or something, some sport. Because you can't remember what sport because you watched.
No, I was watching racing because it was Sunday, and that's what I usually do on Sunday.
It's what about golf?
Sometimes, yes. So I'm watching racing, And May's like, what are you thinking about? Or what are you thinking now? I want to see if we're thinking the same thing. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking, is Kyle Larson going to pit in the next 5 laps? And then are we going to have sex after the race? Because that's pretty much what I think about all the time. So yes, if you were thinking about that, you win. Unfortunately, you weren't thinking of that.
No. I can't even remember.
You were
I think
thinking.
I think I laughed and cackled and whatever, how you described it, just like that. And I was like, said maybe a few Canadian swear words, like my favorite, oh shit, now. And I said, dang. Now I was trying to make you think what I was thinking. So now that I'm telling you, I'm trying to make you think what I'm thinking. What am I thinking?
Yeah, well, what she was thinking about was, is there a new episode of 1923, the prequel to
I was thinking of
Yellowstone?
Kevin Costner.
Yeah. He's not even in that show, so you weren't thinking about Kevin Costner.
No, I was
You're
thinking
about the
hot dude in 1923.
yeah, the guy that was the World
coming
War
back
I
from-
vet that kills lions or whatever.
The
I don't
Lion
even know
Hunter.
The Lion
And
Hunter.
the sexy khakis with the British
Khakis.
khakis, because his British wife would call them khakis, or they call them khakis. Not the kind that you start your automobile with either.
His sexy khakis.
Khakis with an R. Khakis. You've never heard that before?
Not in that
Look at
context.
look at his face. Like, anyway. So the experiment didn't work. The communication experiment failed. I'm gonna keep trying. Are you gonna try to impart your thoughts onto me? You know that you're gonna try. And
I do
say
every day.
failed.
I get out of the shower and I
Anyway.
walk towards you and I go, look at the gloriousness with which you've married. Look at how unbelievably lucky you are. It's like a Greek god lives among your midst. And then you just start laughing.
And what do I do?
And then
I start giggling and go,
and then
what do you
and then I get dressed.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, clearly it's not working.
No, we're not on sync with that or anything else. Lord
Yeah, we're
help
on
us.
sync on the stuff that matters the most, I think. But
Okay, let's do, or I don't know, how are we going to do this? So let's tell everybody. So, yes, communication. We talk about this a lot. Everybody's fascinated, I think, weirdly so, but maybe it's not the most unique thing, but I guess it's pretty special. Being married to someone for 30 plus years, still liking them, always loving them, and still learning and growing. But we still argue and have our moments, not even close to how it was before. Because we've learned what
the
to let
throwing
go.
bowls at me stage has ended.
If you don't know what we're talking about, you need to sign up for the newsletter, and you would read that.
We've exited the projectile stage. Which is good.
That was in the newsletter.
Yes.
Truth serum, sign up. So we have our moments where we get on each other's nerves, get up each other's ass, both of us, and rightly so. But
you realize how restrained I am not commenting on that, but that's fine.
Rightly so. So we thought it would be interesting to talk about that a little bit and how we dealt with it, and see what y'all think, and maybe it's helpful for some of you. But so it starts off with the hottest day, not the hottest day, but one of the hottest days of the year happened to be Monday.
So far.
And it was a day where we were both free, didn't have a lot on our schedule. And we've been busy living in this small little house with crap all over the yard. And I wanted to get it cleaned up a little bit and basically the garden tidied up. And I wanted to put some bark around the yard, and gardening and yard stuff actually is a hobby of mine and something I like. So the other thing is, we're not in this house for long. It will soon probably be on the real estate market. And that's what Tim's thinking, but we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, we needed bark in the past when living on our massive compound property. I'd get it delivered in the 4 to 5 yards of bark. I call that massive, although I just talked to some of you out there who get 10 yards of bark in your yard. So good for you if you have the budget for it. Anyway, we would get it delivered, dumped out. The boys, Tim, Jake, our son, me, would be shoveling this stuff. But we don't need much here. And the cost to get it delivered is prohibitive. So I went fetching for a beautiful friend with an old pickup truck we could borrow, and got it all arranged to go get the bark ourselves, which meant Tim would have to go get it. I could have, but guys like to drive trucks, right? And you volunteered to go get it, even though you pretended like you didn't know where the bark yard was, and we've lived here for 30 years. But besides that point, we get the bark. It's in the yard. I've weeded, and we only need a yard spread around the yard. Huh, that's pretty funny. You're not laughing.
No, I'm listening, Annie, because I understand that listening to women is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and I've got the microphone, which is rare, so I'm taking advantage.
Well, I have one as well.
So anyway, it's hot. He's shoveling, and all of a sudden, I kind of think we might not have enough to make it all the way around the perimeter. And I said, you might have to go again and get it. Another load, sorry. And he just looked at me with forlorn, hot sweat dripping down the corner of his chin that was turning into an upside down frown. Turn that frown upside down was not happening. Anyway. And he basically started to get angry. I could tell he was pissed. And I'm like, but if we're going to do it, we might as well just get it all done in one day. We have the truck, yada, yada. It's just another short trip. And then he got angry. I can't remember what you said next, but then it turned into this back and forth nattering. And he basically said, no, sorry, too bad. And then what happened was I started to feel hurt, and I started to be quiet, and I almost did the retreat. And then I was going to get mad. And then I had to sit there for a minute digging in the weeds and kind of analyze what was going on, because I'm learning. I'm almost 60, but I'm learning to figure out, okay, why did that hurt and why does that bother me? So I started to do that. And then I thought, oh, this hurts because I feel like I'm not valuable. My stuff's not valuable because this is valuable to me. This isn't about just making a house pretty to sell it. I love gardening, but now I'm feeling that my stuff does not matter, but his stuff matters. If it's car stuff or sports stuff that we're going to do. And I have to admit that in the past, I'm the kind of person didn't like conflict or just go with the flow, and would feel like I would just let myself kind of be a doormat or get run over, because I like to keep the peace and don't want to make people upset or push it. So I started to recognize, no, this is important, but I'm not going to flip out and start yelling. I realized this is important to me. How do I convey that in a way to Tim that he understands what this means to me in a way that he would get?
Well, the simplest way would be if you were explaining that to me naked.
Oh, shut it. No, my gosh.
You have my undivided attention.
And the whole neighborhood in the cul-de-sac.
But you would have my undivided attention.
And I would have a freak show going on. And that would be TikTok worthy. We would like totally go viral.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes.
Right?
That would be okay.
So what I said was, and this is me doing the work, literally sitting. It's like the Mel Robbins, Brene Brown, whatever moment where you go, stop and think. Why is this upsetting to you? How's it making you feel? Analyze it. So this is all happening in about 2 minutes. I
analyzed it, and I realized my husband is a sweaty, selfish asshole.
That's what I wanted to say.
And I was like, 31 years. You should have figured that one out a long time ago.
And that's what I would have used to have said. And then he would have fought back and bit back and punched back. And then,
punched back.
I'm kidding. Like with the,
emotionally.
You're right.
Emotionally punching.
I'm imagining those Nerf gloves on where we're just
that's the stupidest crap that anyone
anyway,
ever
no,
invented
you're
for
not
marriage
physical.
counseling. That's
if anyone's physical, it's me throwing the popcorn bowls.
Correct.
Read that article. Anyway.
Projectiles.
So let me get to it. So I basically said, this is important to me. Imagine if it was something automotive and I said to you, what, you're never gonna, why are you washing the cars where they're going to be going across the dusty Oregon Trail and all across the kitty corner of the US in 3 months and get dirty again when we move? So what's the point of cleaning everything up now? Or why are we doing all this work now for your stuff? And he's like, bing. All of a sudden, the sun was now beaming on that beautiful big brain of his and that part of that doesn't think like a girl. And it was like a light bulb moment. And he's like, oh, he goes, I thought we were just doing this to make this sellable. And I don't really care.
And then I was like, oh, so shoveling bark to her would be like a blowjob to me.
Oh, stop it.
But somehow the bark shoveling is way more effort that takes way more time in the boiling hot sun. So,
well, it's all
I guess I'll keep doing it.
It's all perspective. Depends what end of the shovel you're on.
Ooh, oh my.
And sometimes
yes, but
you're
some
not
shovels,
shoveling bark.
some shovels are gigantic. Yes.
So he
and
went,
some aren't.
oh, I get it. This is your thing. I'm partaking in something that's meaningful to you, your hobby. You support me. You come to the water ski club. We go in the car, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, I get it. And then we kind of giggled, laughed. And lo and behold, the truck got emptied. We had like, what, 2 yards, literally. Or if you're in Canadian metric or the rest of the world system, was what? 2 meters, basically, almost, of a yard that didn't get filled with the bark. I'm like, it's good. That part of the yard I don't really care about. You don't have to go get any more. I'm happy. And there was no big blow up. So
yeah, I mean,
but
as much as we joke about it,
it was for us. It was even like, okay, that was a pretty cool moment because it took me being a big girl and analyzing like, why am I feeling hurt and crushed, and then thinking about it and not reacting, and also verbalizing it, but in a calm way, in a way that I thought he would understand. And then you being receptive to listening.
Yeah, it takes a couple things. It takes actually caring. In other words, you have to be in a situation where you're like, I actually want to satisfy whatever need my spouse needs.
Well,
but it helps if you understand, what or why that is. And sometimes the answer is, I don't know why I need this from you, but I need this from you. And I think that is super powerful. That to me is the most powerful connectingness I've ever had with May, which is like, I don't understand myself, but this is what I need from you. And she's like, okay, that's enough. And that's really cool. And we've had this forever. If I look back over the last 31 years and I think of how many times, how much May hates wind and how many weekends she spent in the gorge with me. Now, she was having fun to a certain degree with, the friends we made. And, we had these great camp outs and barbecues and all of those. And it's a beautiful place, but it wasn't the same as it was for me. I mean, I'm like, this is awesome. Like I get up in the morning, I crawl out of the tent. I go windsurfing for hours and hours a day. I run up the side of a mountain. This is just fantastic. And so I just, I basically confronted my inner bitch and said, yeah, you can shovel some freaking bark, dickhead. That's why I'm not a counselor. I'm going
to challenge you on that. So why did you have to use the term inner bitch when it could have been, it's a female derogatory term. It could have been.
No, it's not.
Bastard.
Yeah, but bastard just means that you're born from parents that aren't married.
And what does bitch mean?
It means female dog.
So,
which is far more descriptive of both males and females. We have had a female dog, and she was amazing. But man, when they go in bitch mode, it is a sight to behold.
Well, I don't know. And those dogs were like horny as all get out. That was like a sight to behold.
Well, when the male dog.
Yes, the male dog.
When the male dog, who was intact.
Don't describe it for
these
poor people, please.
Female, the neighbor's female dog was in heat and was half a mile away, and he stopped.
It's just cut.
Eating, and when you would release him from his leash, he was on. It was
Chariots of Fire.
It was one-way ticket to midnight. They call it heavy metal. I mean, it was Sammy Hagar full blast. I went up there and found him one night, and I'm like, I know where he is, and so I feel so bad. Our neighbors were so gracious to us, and I go up there half a mile away, and literally he's laying on their driveway, and the female is laying there, and there's kind of this pool around her.
Oh,
And I'm like,
so
oh my gosh, what has happened? And if dogs had opposable thumbs, I guarantee you that dog would have been smoking a cigarette. There's not even a chance in the world that wasn't going to happen. I mean, he's got this big black lab smile. It's like, yeah.
and drinking a Dos Equis.
Yes. And then I call the neighbors and I said, I think our dog's mated. Oh, that's okay. We love puppies. And I'm like, really? Okay.
Enjoy.
And actually, it ended up being a great story. They were able to, the puppies were amazing. And they kept one. And our neighbor who said, he was like, that's the best dog I've ever had. And I'm like, you're welcome.
Sure.
Because my dog is completely unrestrained.
And my part in it was chaining him up and instilling that desire so that he could.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Like, it's just absolutely crazy.
Anyway, so there was a little communication breakdown, communication conflict resolution tidbit. We didn't reenact it here. I guess we're better at spur of the moment than planned ahead. But
yeah, but I mean,
but
it's pretty simple. It's really putting yourself in the position of the other person, and it's this idea that everything that's important to you is going to be important to your spouse is crazy. So you're going to have to die partially to yourself to meet the needs of your partner. And I mean, that's what's awesome. That's what makes life amazing, is that, there's this discipline that you have to learn.
What if you had said, I don't get it, your hobby is stupid?
Well, it doesn't matter if it's stupid, because they're all stupid.
I'm just saying, because
no, but they're all stupid.
Some people want to say that.
But they're all stupid. Like seriously, every single freaking hobby I have is completely insane. Like, why do I have to have old cars that you have to work on all the time? Well, because they look cool. And no, it's because it brings me all this joy of meeting people that are in the hobby. And it brings me all this joy when I drive them and when I diagnose a problem and fix it. But it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make you necessarily any money or anything like that.
Oh, no, it does not.
And yet, it's like I go water skiing, and, I'm water skiing with tons of my friends that have skied for 40 or 50 years. And we're like, why do we still do this? And the answer is, it's like golf, because it's super hard. And I go, yeah. And it's completely dumb. Like, we drive a water ski around 6 buoys as, fast as we can with the shortest rope we can. And we do that for 50 years because we're idiots. No, it's because it brings us joy. And that's all that matters. It's like, if digging in dirt brings you joy, yes, then I need to figure out how to make that important, because doing things that bring you joy are actually, if they're not important to you as a spouse, you suck.
Yes.
As a spouse.
Very
and not
well
the
put.
Good suck, the bad suck.
Very well put. So if anybody's got any thoughts on that, tag a comment on there. Anyway.
All right. We're actually, wow, we're burning a lot of daylight here.
Burning time. So cheers to everybody tonight. We are having potato vodka from
Mauna
Loa. It is a mid-level vodka.
Yeah, but it is potato vodka.
And
it's one
I
of
would
the,
say
it is probably the least expensive potato vodka, and it's actually okay.
I say it's the best bang for your buck with that stuff. Is very good.
No, May. I am the best bang for your buck. I'm sorry, that was awesome.
I'm just like speechless. I'm gonna keep drinking. I'm having a hibiscus lavender cocktail. I don't usually do a bunch of sugar in mine, but I found this in the refrigerator. The company that makes these mixes is called Raft, I believe. RAFT. Comes in a little bottle. I can't remember where I got it. Look it up. Hibiscus lavender. Mix it with your vodka. You're supposed to add soda. I don't do soda, but lemon and ice, soda water. Very refreshing. You definitely want, it's sweet, so you want some tart. They suggest bitters, and you're doing like truck stop brisk lemonade
and vodka,
and
because
so it's summery. It's pink. Tim's real men drink pink. There you go. That's all I have to say. So Monopoloa, thank you. I know you're in like Eastern Europe, so if you want to sponsor the show,
I think
go
we should
Eastern
go
Europe.
to this, and then we'll be at about half an hour, and then we can do this other one next week. Because I don't want to. I mean, unless you want to go over a little bit. This actually is very interesting.
Are you cheating me of my history?
No,
101?
I'm not. Okay,
Okay,
I'm adding it to
you
stream.
Can,
Here we go.
You can. Well, I wasn't going to start there.
You weren't?
I'm not with that slide, but you're in control. Well, do you want me to give you the very short Cole's Notes, Spark Notes version? I can. Tim wants to talk about some goofy stuff.
So here's this slide's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that gave it all away. So now I don't have to talk. All right, I was gonna say, get that slide away. When you all
the one that blows me away though is that 1628. I mean, this is Shakespearean time. William Harvey discovered that blood circulated throughout the body. They didn't know that then.
Yeah. Go to. I was going to take a poll and talk about, since I was writing about truth serum, looking up stuff about serum. There we go. Found some really amazing articles on the history of blood transfusion. I did find that one. You can pop that back on. The Annals of Medical History, the actual written copy from September 1932. When you look it up, it's even crusty and parchment paper. So blood transfusions. If you ask, do you know anything about the history of blood transfusion, or who did the first transfusion, or who is known for blood transfusion? I mean, any thoughts pop in your head?
Well, I always thought
Anybody out there?
I always thought it was
Start
World War I, where they just connected two guys together and started like pumping blood from one guy to the other.
Yeah, well, they did, but it's fascinating. I mean, a lot of people will think that the history of blood transfusion actually basically is tagged to Karl Landsteiner back in 1901. And he won a Nobel Prize that was awarded in 1930 for his role. And you can show that. That's fine. Because he discovered the first 3 human blood types, A, B, and he called it C, which is now known as O type. So he got a Nobel Prize for that because it was very important, because they've been actually researching and messing around and doing all kinds of nonsense with blood transfusions for years before that, and it was failing. But I would like to give the award and really tag the history of blood transfusions, in my humble opinion, my reading, to Dr. James Blundell. And that's because he really is the first person to do a human-to-human transfusion. The initial one that failed, and then the final one that was successful. And that goes.
So James Blundell, did his friends call him Jimmy Blue? Jimmy Blue is going to give you some blood.
I know. I like his curly. I'm not. Is that a wig or is that real hair? Right?
You have almost one. It was 1818, so the chance that that's real hair is about 0.
So yes, it was 1818, and I'm going to tell that story, and then I'll tell you a little bit of fun facts and freakishness before that. So really,
Jimmy Blue.
It took. So they'd been messing around from the time of the gladiators with transfusions, drinking blood, all kinds of nonsense, and trying to figure out even the history of circulation in the body, until it was James Blundell who was called to the home of a woman who was delivering a baby, bleeding profusely in childbirth. But by the time he arrived, she lost too much blood. She died. And that was when he was like, this is something that's really important. And they had actually had a ban on blood transfusion experiments just prior to that.
Okay, whoa, time out.
Because
I knew this was going to happen. I did not read this. I knew that the experts and the powers that be and the medical establishment was going to lose their ever-loving mind over this concept, because it was like you're infusing the spirit of the miasma, of the humors, of the whatever, and you're going to, yep, I knew it. Okay. I knew it. The experts they always get in the way of actual experimentation.
Right. So now,
sorry, kids, that's how it works.
Pause the movie there. Let's back it up to the beginning of time. My highlighter just fell off the desk if you heard that. All right. So let's rewind to the very beginning, back in a deep, dark place. So all throughout time, people knew that blood was like they discovered blood, the vital force of the body in animals and humans. They thought it was like the seed of the soul, but they didn't really understand, how it was made, how it got circulated, where it came from. So they blamed any kind of debilitating diseases, exhaustions, basically insanity, the brain, problems with the sickness, the soul and the blood. And there's all kinds of mythology about things that went on, but basically there's tales and fun stuff in these annals all about bloodbaths used by ancient Egyptian princesses to try to help recuperate them. People take actual baths in it. They would use animal blood to try to heal
so they used
themselves.
animal blood
They
or
would
human
bathe in
blood
it.
to do a bloodbath.
Oh, animal blood. Yeah. Then we hear of stories of gladiators going out there when the guys were slaughtered out in the middle of the stadium, right? Is that what it's called? And people with epilepsy, and I think they were psycho, going out there and then cutting the jugular or their veins and sucking the blood out of these dying gladiators themselves, trying to be healed of their ailments. They'd run in, and it was really disgusting. There's tales of crazy people, like a woman who was having, and lots of about epilepsy. There's a lot of these epileptic fits that is really fascinated these people.
Yeah, but it makes you wonder if the term epilepsy meant something different.
It does not define epilepsy, but anyway, there's this one woman
because there was a lot of
epileptic fits. It could have been psycho.
Mental illness.
They started thinking that if she would drink cat's blood because she felt like a cat, it would cure her. So she would drink cat blood, and then she started, to act like a cat, and she even climbed on the roof of buildings and would meow and yell and scratch and stare into a hole.
So she was an early furry.
An early furry, exactly. So all kinds of fascination, in the early centuries with blood, and then it wasn't until the discovery, in 1490, not the discovery. I would say the first documented transfusion attempt was in 1490, which blew my mind. I didn't remember hearing about this. When Pope Innocent, I did not know there was a Pope Innocent the Eighth, was lying.
Look, if you pick the name Innocent, really, you should be Pope Guilty Bastard.
Pope Innocent the Eighth.
You pick Innocent as your name.
There's been a few before him.
I'm thinking you're trying to cover something up.
Pope Innocent lay dying just from old age in 1490, and they took the
old age at 42 because he was so innocent and had massive herpetic lesions all over. So I'm sorry.
Okay, stop. You're getting waylaid. It was a Jewish physician. I don't know why they say Jewish, who tried to rescue him, and he got the blood from 3 small boys and tried to transfuse it into him.
Okay, why small boys?
I don't know. It just, they all talk
Catholic
about this.
Church and small boys makes me very nervous.
Small boys. They each were promised, this was fascinating, a ducat for their as their reward to try to revive him.
A Ducati? They had Ducatis back then?
Ducat.
What's a Ducat? I mean, I know what a Ducati is, and they are amazing.
Anyways.
What's a Ducat? Is that $1? Is it money, or
I'm going to tell you. Shut it. So they were promises, and I think they were actually, he was drinking the blood at this time. They had no means to put it into the body because they didn't understand circulation. So they tried to get him to drink it. Let's just say the ducat. Well, first off, the boys died, and the Pope died, and nobody lived. And I think that the Jewish physician was also in trouble. He fled as quickly as possible. That's right, after the failed experiment as well, because his life was on the line. That was in 1490. Now, a ducat is actually, I looked it up. Because I knew you'd ask. It's a gold coin that they used for trade back then. It's equal to 3.5 grams of 98% gold. And I did the math on the market today, would be worth $214.
To kill your kid in an experimental transfusion.
There you go. So that
with
was
a Jewish physician, because in 1490 there was zero anti-Semitism in Europe.
right.
None. Wow. What could possibly go wrong? I don't know. Like Israel deciding that Pfizer should be the only the only company that provides their COVID vaccine. Because, wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
pretty
Wow.
crazy. It all started with the Pope that was dying. And then fast forward, there's lots of
But
fun-
it's not a transfusion if you're drinking blood. It's just like insanity.
well,
I mean, they're trying. I get it. They're trying to get blood back into your body. The easiest way would be to drink it. I get that.
they keep experimenting and learning, right? Just like we're learning about the body all the time. And we just learned about the acupuncture system not too long ago, that it actually exists. That's a different story. So let me say that then fast forward to the years ahead, where the actual history of blood transfusion,
So who's the first guy to actually shove a needle in somebody?
they say necessarily begins with the discovery of the circulation. Just a minute. In 1616 by I think it's William Harvey,
It was Harvey. Yeah.
where they actually figured out the blood system, that blood is going in one direction. Because before that, they would think that some people thought that the heart produced blood and it would just kind of shoot back and forth. They thought even that the lungs produced air.
Is the Harvey Wallbanger named after William Harvey?
I do not know.
Did he do a Doctales episode back in 1660 or whatever it was?
Okay.
I'm just wondering.
You're distracting.
So
they now know the circulatory system, how it exists, how blood flows in one way. And at this point, they started injecting all kinds of medications and things in there. So blood from dogs was common. They would do they would have a bladder, and then they would put blood in it, and then they have these quills, and they would put it into people's circulatory systems to try to infuse it in there. All kinds of bizarre medical devices.
So when they're injecting blood of dogs, like, are they actually getting intravenous access?
I believe so. Yes, I didn't. There's a lot here, and I didn't get into it all.
Like, when was the hypodermic needle?
I don't know. They probably poked a vein or an artery, but they didn't know what they were doing. So I did not look up the history of the hypodermic needle. I'm just going.
That's for next week.
That's for next week.
Oh,
That's your homework.
After hours history of the hypodermic needle.
Mm-hmm. But get this. So they have this knowledge about circulation, about it flowing in one direction, and then right after that, not long after that, 40 years after that, was a physician named Richard Lauer who performed the first transfusion between animals. And he then it goes on from there. They transfuse blood into a human from a lamb, and it was into a 15-year-old boy. This is 1667 by Jean-Baptiste Denis, who took lamb blood, infused it into a boy. The boy survived initially, and then when Denis tried to cure a madman with the blood of a calf, the patient died, and instead Denis got charged with manslaughter. He was acquitted, but the drama caused an edict of, it's called Châtelet, that banned all transfusions without the approval of the Paris Faculty of Medicine, and that put a halt to research.
Okay, so I just want to hit a big, gigantic pause sign.
And they said,
"Look at my calluses.
We cannot do this anymore.
A real man.
All this experimentation has to stop. Putting lamb blood and dog's blood into people. People are dying. Stop."
So this is the 1600s. This started in the 1400s. It's now 2023. This whole concept of kind of political medicine. We think, oh, well, it shouldn't be politicized. Guess what, kids? It was always politicized. They made a law that said you can't experiment with transfusions anymore. I get it. It probably made some sense, but it also made no sense because it halted something that, now we take for granted. There's blood banks all over the place. Millions and millions of people's lives have been saved with blood transfusion. But crappy science and crappy belief structures lead to a diminishment and slowing of the progress of human flourishing.
Well,
and that doesn't ever change.
I'm going to interrupt because this is the hopeful part. And it took an amazing physician. That's why I like James Blundell, because he was a
Jimmy Blue.
thoughtful guy. And there was, yes, a restriction on it. But he's like, you know what? He was an OBGYN who saw this lady bleed out. And he's like, we got to do something. She needs blood. And that prompted him to start to think about experimenting again. And he thought, maybe what we need to do is use human blood from one person to another. So he wanted to use human beings as donors. And so the first opportunity came, wasn't a pregnant woman, it wasn't a postpartum thing, when there was a guy who had, I think, stomach cancer, was dying. He was thin, weak, he looked horrible. So he was a little leery about transfusing this terminal guy. But he thought, let's give it a try. He's got nothing left. And what he did was he convinced a group of colleagues, other physicians and other men in attendance, to donate blood. And he had built this device that actually was a way to collect the blood and then infuse it into the patient. And there's a big story about how this happened. And people joke about this was the first legit source of crowdsourcing. 19th century version, live crowdsourcing, everybody donating their blood.
Did he do a rap? I'm Jimmy Blue. You know it's true. Bitches need blood.
I don't know if you put the picture on here, but he made this device, was a cup that collected the donor's blood. And then he drew up in a syringe. So at this point, they have a syringe, and infused it into the open vein of this patient. And he did one syringe full at a time. It took 2 minutes for each syringe full. It took about 30 minutes. And lo and behold, the guy kind of came to, and he started to feel good. His nose pinked up and he felt really good. And he said, I feel much better. I'm good. I feel a little faint. Sadly, he died after 56 hours, dead. I wonder why. So
they didn't cross match his blood.
The next case, so this is 1818. The next case is 1825 of the first patient to survive a human transfusion.
Okay, so,
and that was a postpartum hemorrhage. And get this, the donor was her husband. He was the bedside donor. And basically at that point, I think that they did direct body into the human transfusion. And she lived.
Because it was what? That was 1818. So it was almost 100 years later.
1825.
It was almost 100 years later before they figured out, what was it, potassium citrate or whatever it is that we use.
So that was from her husband. She lived. And then you're right. So fast forward, what happened was then some people lived, some people died. It took a while, and it was the 1900s, when they're first discovering the different blood types. And that's why Carl Landsteiner got the Nobel Prize, identifying the different blood types. And then I think I have the notes here that it was actually building on that research, because there was a lot going on, that the potassium citrate and being able to store blood was right around that time, 1907, I believe.
Because otherwise blood very quickly turns into a gigantic, it turns into jello, and not the Bill Cosby jello, like really nasty, gross jello that kills you.
Yeah. So what you showed was a good synopsis from the Red Cross that gives like pertinent points in history and all the different discoveries, because fast forward, then they learn how to store blood, take plasma, screen for antibodies, and so forth. So
so that was Carl Landsteiner got the blood type thing. That was in 1901.
Yes, the citrate glucose solution, that's an anticoagulant.
That was 1917. Okay, so you got it.
And World War I was when?
1914 to 1918.
Yeah.
So
huge changes in World War, but the transfusion was before that.
So but you have to you have to kind of rewind a little bit though, and look at this from a 10,000 foot view. They started figuring out blood transfusion stuff in the 1400s.
Well, they started testing the
Yeah,
theories.
okay, but the 1400s, all right? So it took 500 years before it was actually established medical practice. And it took arguably another 50 years from there, or not 50, probably by late 1940s, early 1950s, before you actually could cross match blood, which is taking the blood from the donor that's been sitting in the potassium citrate in a blood bank and then crossing it with a person. Now, fast forward that technology to what we do now. And we type in cross match. So you know that you're narrowing down the availability of a blood product for a patient. It gets crazier than that because there's so many antibodies in blood that we do not understand, that there's people, if you transfuse them enough times because they have these chronic blood loss or blood production problems, that you can never transfuse them again because they produce antibodies to every kind of blood. It's completely wild. And so, and even now, we're super cautious with blood transfusions because there's viruses and things that we don't know that we're at least humble enough now with blood to say blood is dirty by definition. If you need it, you need it. We'll save your life with it. But we try our best to give you the least that you need because we don't know what's potentially hiding in there.
Fascinating stuff. And
even though we have a very cleansed blood pool now.
Sorry to interrupt, but
but like you think,
I was going to say that's what's so
years.
fascinating about, we talked to our friend Dr. Sabine Hazen about stool transplants. They're very cautious because they know the history of blood transfusion and that there's a lot going on, and that you can't just willy-nilly pop somebody else's bodily fluids contents into someone else without possible consequences.
But I'm thinking black lab would be pretty freaking amazing stool. Can you imagine just like the energy, just fetching and
Dogs eat their own poop too, Maybe that would happen.
Maybe you'd
start eating your own poop.
They also have amazing flexibility. So I'll take the good with the bad.
That's my little medical history piece. And you know what I realized when I was reading all that, and I was so fascinated because I'm not usually a historical person, but I'm like, why didn't we learn more of this in med school?
Yeah, but here's the other thing.
Why didn't we learn more of this fun stuff?
500 freaking years. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. It's crazy how long that takes. And yet we think, okay, antibiotics, like honest to God, antibiotics, go to your doctor, go to a family doctor, get antibiotics. That has really only essentially existed.
Oh, right. I see what you're saying.
Since the very early 1950s.
Is amazingly long.
It's 75 years. We've had 75 years of antibiotics.
Well,
so we're like, antibiotics are great. They're going to save humanity. They might until they don't save humanity and everyone dies because their microbiome is screwed up.
I would say if you have like history and you want to just type up annals of medical history of blood transfusion, you'll find this parchment paper article online like I did, and I printed it all out, and it's fun to read and fascinating. And why didn't we learn more of that fun stuff in med school instead of some of the dumb nonsense?
Krebs cycle. Yeah, Krebs cycle was destroying your life.
Well. So let's, I don't know.
I think
it's 50 minutes in, and
good.
I think we could be good, but maybe we could turn.
I think I need a transfusion.
We need to talk about something funny in the news.
I think I need a transfusion, and it's called more cowbell. Okay.
So I was going to look. There's a lot going on in the news right now. Lots such as there's Lyme disease everywhere. Everywhere you turn, it's been a wet, warm spring. Ticks are trying to kill you, and I want to get to that, and maybe next week. Also,
but you know what else
is everywhere. And now
we're doing that
everybody's losing weight. Just a minute. And so now, of course, if you can't get Ozempic because there's a shortage. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Because Kim Kardashian and all her buddies and every TikTok, Instagrammer is on Ozempic. So they're doing berberine and all these other things. I want to get to that. But I think something funny, silly, and to make you laugh at the end of your Wednesday would be what Tim's going to talk about.
Okay, so this is a public service announcement as far as I'm concerned.
Of course it is.
Because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Well, what is 3,500 pounds of prevention worth? Let's just watch this, and we shall discuss.
And then that animal hit a 9-year-old girl, tossing her into the air. That girl from Florida is going to be okay. This happened on Monday near a popular trail in the Old Faithful Geyser area. Witnesses say that group got within 5 to 10 feet of that bison for at least 20 minutes before it charged. Everyone else you can see is running. She gets hit. Officials are reminding people these are wild animals and to stay at least 25 yards away.
All right. Can I just say?
I'm
Wait,
sorry.
no.
That makes
Let
me really
start.
happy. I must be a terrible person. She
So,
landed on her
yes,
feet. She was
Desiree
uninjured.
said, "Oh my goodness, poor kiddo." Okay.
She was
I agree.
uninjured, but they were there for almost an hour trying to pet the freaking
Okay.
bison.
So let me say, I analyzed the whole thing. This is what I see as being a Canadian growing up around moose and polar bears and the such. They're in Yellowstone. It's a national park. I guess you got to walk free because there's bison there and there's all these kids around. I see them. So my first thought is, I don't think that they need to like have fences, but common sense and parents, like, these are wild animals. My second thought is, the girl was from Florida. Okay. And
Well,
she's at so they're from Florida. She's from in Yellowstone. Now imagine someone from Alaska that goes to Florida and they're at the Disney parks where the swamps are and they're walking around and they haven't been informed that, gators. Wait, I'm not taking off the blame. Listen to me. No. It's like, you need to research the flora and fauna of the area you're going to. There's no excuses. So you from Alaska, you go to Florida, you don't get a pass because you're walking around in Gatorland and then your child gets eaten by a gator. So you go from Florida to Yellowstone where big bad buffalo are, and you walk 10 feet near them. That's on you.
No,
right?
no, it's
Don't you
100%.
agree?
No, it's 100% on you.
Yes.
You are a complete dipshit. I have been to Yellowstone and I have been to Florida, and we have sat drinking cocktails and eating hamburgers right next to gigantic lakes, and there's signs everywhere. Don't go in the water because there's a freaking alligator and it's going to bite your dick off.
No, exactly.
Yes, everywhere. You have to be completely discognizant with reality. And if you go to Yellowstone, there's giant signs. Buffalo have killed 20 people in the park this year because dumbasses drive way too fast and they drive into the side of a 3,000-pound animal. So there's no reason to go try to pet a freaking buffalo. I don't care. That's natural freaking selection. And it just happened another 2 weeks ago. And I was like, why is it always people from China?
Oh.
And you know why? I heard a story of a guy that worked in Yellowstone, and a tourist from Asia came up to him and said, where do you put all the animals at the end of the day when it's night? Because they thought it was a park. And if it's a park, it's a zoo. So it's not a park, honestly, zoo. It's a park. Holy shit, they're trying to kill you, park.
So can I have a word in? And Desiree agrees.
Sorry, but I just lose my mind over that stuff.
So there's no excuse if you're an American for that. Now, culturally, honestly, I get it. Maybe in parts of Asia, China, wherever, the only animals you get to see are locked up in zoos. And
along with the Uyghur Muslims building Nikes, unfortunately.
But think about it. So they have rules, regulations, lockdowns. It's just, you trust the government, whatever the thing is. Then you come to a foreign country and you don't know that you just get to go free and wild. Think about it.
Yes, I get it.
But an American, someone who's from an American state shouldn't. I mean, come on.
There was a dipshit I found who was like the bro guy, right? And he's posing and screaming at the buffalo in the middle of a highway like he's going to fight it. I'm like, you just deserve a major bison ass kicking because you are completely but every single year there's multiple reports of people trying to pet these things. We lived outside of Jasper National Park in Canada.
We've witnessed it.
And there are massive elk, and they are still in velvet with huge antlers, like some of the most majestic animals in all of creation. And it's a national park, which means the animals get to do whatever the hell they want.
It's like going to Safeway where people get to do
no
whatever
hunting.
they want in the parking
lot. And they are laying in the ditch, and people get out, and we got out, take a couple pictures.
Oh yeah.
Some
how far away? Wait,
genius.
how far away were we? We were like 10 carloads away because we know
Some
like I'm not getting
genius
near that thing.
runs up. Some genius runs up, and she decides she wants to pet the velvet of the antlers of this animal. Okay, do you understand what happens when the velvet comes off of an elk? Okay, what time of year is that? Well, that's late August. That time is called the rut. What do elk do in the rut? They beat the living hell out of other elk so that they can mate. So in other words, if you are in their way, the only two things they're on their mind start with F, and the first one is fighting.
Okay.
So don't pet their antlers.
Listen, forget that part, because a lot of people don't know, and they haven't watched, Al Elming's Game Farm, or what's his name? Poor guy that died in Australia doing what he loved, and entangled with the manta.
Steve Irwin.
Anyway.
Stingray, not a manta. Manta would just kiss you to death.
So people who don't hunt or pay attention to what rut or what time of the year it is, besides that, these are wild creatures. They're huge. They're animals. They don't get to do what you think is cool. So why would you get that close or let your kids get that close? That boggles my mind. It doesn't matter. There's no excuse. So you don't understand. It's like the rut or whatever. But why would you get that close?
I think
it's
we
like,
live.
Oh, there's like a big fire. Let's get really close to the fire and see how close we can get to the fire.
The forest is on fire. Let's make some s'mores. That would make sense, wouldn't it? No, I think what happens is I do. I think we live in a world that's so tame, that's so controlled, that if you're from an urban area and there's dogs and cats and whatever, and the world is so tame that when you see wild animals acting tame, you assume they're tame.
It's like Jessie the cat that I just put dry shampoo on, like Jessie tonight.
Not tame anymore. Yeah. So, but I think that's the thing. Well, he's acting tame. Yeah. It's a 1,700-pound elk with a gigantic rack that could literally scissor you from stem to stern with barely flicking his head.
And sadly, there's another one. Is it from Yellowstone, or what park is it, where it shows someone being, looks like they're actually gored and they get tossed because they're impaled in the gut and they go flying, and of course everybody teehees and laughs. Do you remember?
Some of the most dangerous wild animals you can encounter are deer, which people don't understand. You think bears, yes, but people see bears as predators, so they run away.
Kangaroos.
They're like sharks. They're like sharks.
Or kangaroos.
The getting close to bison is crazy. It's like, they're cows. No, they're not cows. They're bison.
Cows scare me. Oh my gosh. Because I know what they do. And where we used to walk, where we lived, these cows would get really close to the fence and they would, look like they're stalking you because they had calves. So I would get scared because it's a cow. It's not a bull. And I would even get scared because the calves are there. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to get near that. And I'm going to walk and keep an eye on them because they could trump the fence and knock me down.
Anything that weighs 10 times more than me has 1/10 of my brain and can run twice as fast. I tend to treat with respect.
Okay, so why is that medical, and why are we doing it on?
Because it's a public service announcement to not get your ass kicked by a wild animal in a national park. But deer are terrible.
It's summer.
Deer are they're prey animals, so they're scared to death of predators. So humans are alpha predators. So we see them and they're nice and they got their fawns and they're eating the grass.
They're not. They're rodents.
And then you go up to a deer and try to pet a deer, and then what it does is that? Oh yeah, this happens all the time. There's literally schematic pictures in Yellowstone or in Yosemite about not petting deer because they rear up on their back legs and absolutely kick the living hell out of you with their front feet.
Yeah, and kangaroos do that too. I've seen some videos, but let's just tell people.
But there's no kangaroos in Yellowstone.
No.
Contrary to popular belief.
Weren't we parked?
Maybe Kevin Costner.
Because we were blessed to have done 4 months plus, very rural, in Jasper National Park in a small town, family medicine, where we gained our stellar skills as rural family docs. And we went to the park, and I can't remember. I'm sure it was in Jasper Park. We were walking around.
bighorn sheep.
The bighorn sheep. We came out to the parking lot, and it was the season. And there was 2 bighorn sheep going. They were going at it. They're fighting. It was mating season, and their horns interlocked, and they got stuck. And this is a common thing that happens. But it was the parking lot, and I just remember the sound of the horns, them knocking back and forth, and then as they're stuck, they're banging into cars and pickups.
There was tourists.
Everybody's kind of standing around like
that were
"Ooh,
driving.
I just want to get in my car and drive away, but that was
There was
carnage."
tourists that were driving their rental car closer to the rams, the bighorn sheep, to get a better picture until the bighorn sheep rammed the shit out of their car.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, what did you expect was going to happen?
It's nature.
Like, what did you expect was like?
But
Literally,
I
it's
know,
just
I
like,
was like, oh,
bam,
holy
bam
shit.
on the side of this car. This is
Oh.
before, cell phone video. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to sleep so well tonight. This is so funny. Like, people are such knuckleheads.
But I mean, it was kind of a cool thing to drive through downtown Jasper, and just see those elk. They're like lawn ornaments, not flamingos, or cats or dogs, but just literally they'd walk around. They just park themselves on someone's front lawn or doorstep. Majestic, but massively scary if you get near them.
Well, what terrified me is they would sleep in the ditches of the highway.
Yeah.
And you're driving at night, and you would see elk antlers sticking out everywhere from the side of the road. And I'm like, if one of these guys decides that he wants to cross the street and like see his girlfriend, we're dead.
Yeah.
Because we're going to smash into a 1,700 pound.
That was on the way down here when we moved, but didn't we see one of them was severed by someone's windshield, literally into like a buzzsaw.
The hindquarters were sitting in the passenger seat.
And half outside. Yeah, it was kind of
gory. Yeah, that wasn't an elk. That was a deer.
So anyway,
if it was an elk, there'd been no car.
It's summer. Be wary whether you're in the Everglades or you're in Alaska. Animals will always be animals. And same with cats. Your little cat can bite. We've seen the worst cat bites when your friendly cat, a patient giving chemo to his cat, got viciously attacked. So animals will always revert to their animal state. Be wary. That's
cat's
it.
Like, why are you giving me chemo?
I know.
I'm a cat, dude.
That poor guy. I think he came in 3 times with cat bites.
Cat bites, very bad. Don't get cat bites.
All right. So I just want to, before we sign off, hey, well, let's talk a little bit about Truth Serum. It's the newsletter. Please sign up. And I'm starting to do a little writing. Well, both of us are, but
May's writing's better than mine.
Tim
and mine strangely is in crayon.
Tim is very verbal. I am more I don't know even the word for it. I guess some kind of written dyslexia thing. But we're going to start a possible Substack coming your way soon. Sign up for our newsletter, Truth Serum. Go to the website and you get
freemd.com. Sign up for Truth Serum.
Extra
Stop wasting your life.
That's not on the podcast. This week we have an amazing episode that has come out and dropping tomorrow. Let's give you a little hint. Peter McCullough is back. And we had a great conversation with Peter, a little lighter. We got him to loosen up a little bit. And
every time we talk to Peter and to Harvey Risch, my goal is to get them to laugh. and
so
it takes a little work.
If you're listening on the replay,
he's a happy guy.
Yeah.
It's just that he's so focused on.
If you're listening on the replay on Monday morning, please go back and check out Thursday's episode because it's Peter. We're blessed to have him back. He's very popular. He's got a lot going on. And so he took the time to talk with us, which we really appreciate. And we had a great conversation talking about what's happening to kids with all the vaccines. Like I thought it was nuts when our kids were getting them in the late 90s to what's happening now, the rise of autism, the rise of chronic childhood diseases. And if you look to the right and the left, your kids, grandkids, or your neighbor's kids have something going on. So we talk about that as well as the sexualization of America, of our kids, and this trans world and what that means.
But we did our job. Let's just be really honest. We did our job for the month of June, talking about trans fusions.
Always got to throw that in.
because we're equal opportunity.
Offenders.
Correct.
Yeah. That's your spiritual gift.
Is
Mine is a little different. I guess it's the writing.
well, even
and-
the body of Christ needs an a-hole, right?
Yes, it does. Even the body of Christ needs a rectum, anus, and all that in between. I like to think of myself as the adrenal gland or something. Sometimes I think I'm just an earlobe, but we're all needed anyway. Whatever your role is, we'd like to hear from you. Send us a note. Share this podcast. Thanks for being here. We love our fans. If you think we're not great, well, there's lots out there for you.
Then share our episodes with your enemies.
Happy Wednesday. Have a great rest of the week, and we will see you guys next time.